why do you think decline in fertility is one of the biggest challenges that human civilization faces at this particular moment?
It's on track to produce below replacement fertility worldwide. We've already seen peak births in 2016. It's a pretty long-term, relatively steady overall trend. So it looks the sort of thing you can project forward in the future. I think we understand many of the causes, approximate causes, and that they are long-term things that look like they will continue. So once population peaks and starts to decline, there's no obvious force that will make that reverse. So for a long time, say the United Nations, when it was projecting future populations, it would assume that fertility would fall until it hit replacement level, at which point it would stop falling. That was just a working assumption they used for many decades. And it's just not true. It didn't stop there. And there's no particular other place where it will stop. And if it just stays below replacement for a long time, the population will just decline worldwide. And a declining worldwide population implies that innovation will slow down and come to a halt. And innovation is one of the main things that makes our world liberal and civil. It was much less so before innovation came to dominate, and people made adjustments in order to promote innovation in their places. So we will see a several centuries long decline. Innovation will drive to a halt. We will sort of abandon many cities. We won't be able to support as much software as we had before. Our politics and society will get less civil, and plausibly nothing will stop it. So the most likely scenario is that we just get replaced by the small, exceptional, insular fertile cultures like the Amish or Haredim, just like the Christians took over the Roman Empire by doubling every 20 years for 3 centuries. That's enough for these others to do as well.
And why do you think it's so hard to reverse this trend?
These aren't sort of, based on where buildings or roads are or something that we could just choose to change. They are based on culture. That is, our deep values, or the values that we most cherish and that we feel strongest about, are the values driving these changes. And they are not very responsive to attempts to control them. I mean, in some sense, huge parts of our society fight the battles to push these in one direction or another. And it's hard to add much to that fight to get people love their culture, really. So one of the things that people most love and trust is what they were taught about what's good and bad, who's good and evil, what are the virtues that they should most celebrate, and the other opposite cultural features they should most despise. If there's anything that people feel the most confident and attached to, it's that. That's what we're talking about. That's the structure out of which these trends are built.
Okay, and why do you think this trend towards more homogeneous global culture, and in this regard specifically homogeneous global culture which is relatively hostile towards high fertility, why do you think it's going to continue in that direction without any reversals? Because theoretically some new cultures can arise and they might become more prevalent over time, especially if this culture, which is antinatalist culture, is so weak in terms of fitness, in terms of ability to grow, etc. Why do you think we are not going to see new cultures arise or even existing? Because we, of course, moving towards more homogeneous culture in many ways, but it's still not fully homogeneous. And why some of the existing cultures might not go in the opposite directions?
So if you look around the world, you travel around the world, you read around the world, it looks like it has a lot of diversity in many ways. There are different kind of clothing and songs and food and, house decoration styles and all sorts of holidays, right? World looks like it has a lot of variety of that sort. But when you get to core values, there's much less variety than it might seem. So if you looked at, say, in regulation around the world, say in COVID policies in the early days, or look at nuclear regulation or airline regulation, you see enormous, very strong convergence worldwide. Also on fertility, you see worldwide, pretty consistently worldwide falling in fertility. And these are things that suggest that we have much less variety in our deep values. So we have what some have called a boutique multiculturalism, where we just like lots of these surface things to vary, but we don't really want deep values to vary. So I did some polls on Twitter where I asked about 12 different kinds of variety. Do people want more or less of it? And fundamental values was the kind where people least wanted more variety. They most wanted less variety of fundamental values. And I think that's right. People kind of hate it when other people have very different attitudes toward gender equality or slavery or, death or children or, work, respect, ethnicity, right? People really, really hate when they find other people who have different values to them on some of these key deep values. And that's why the world doesn't have so much variety on that. So for example, when I meet elites from around the world, they tell me two things. One is the people from where they come from have some unique different features that the world should value. And they also tell me that they themselves are not different at all. They will fit in just fine in any elite organization anywhere in the world. And so I think elites really are quite homogeneous, especially they went to the same schools, work in the same places, socialize in the same places, and have the same values.